For 10 years, I was married to a man named Daniel. He was everything that made a stable husband, financially secure, emotionally calm, and respectful. We had a house in Malabo that overlooked the sea, 2 beautiful children in a private school, and a circle of friends who envied our perfect life. At least, on the outside. But inside, I was bored. I know how that sounds selfish, ungrateful. But the truth is, Daniel was more of a provider than a partner. Our conversations had reduced to monthly budgets, school meetings, and polite goodnights. The passion had fizzled into routine. That's when I met Baltasar Ngonga, head of the National Financial Investigation Agency of Equatorial Guinea. A man cloaked in mystery and surrounded by whispers. He wasn't just powerful, he radiated power. His suits were always pressed, his eyes sharp and unreadable, and his voice low, deliberate, dangerous. I first met him at a high-profile fundraiser organized by the central bank. Daniel couldn't make it. He was in Spain for a business conference, so I went alone. I wore a red silk dress, high heels, and a touch more lipstick than usual. I was looking for attention. I found him instead. He approached me like he already knew everything about me. And maybe he did. He extended his hand, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "You look like someone who deserves more than what she's settling for." I should have walked away. I didn't. What started as secret texts turned into late-night drives in government SUVs. Baltasar would send a car to pick me up while Daniel thought I was out with friends. He took me to places I never knew existed in my own country: private villas, hidden beach houses, top security suites in Bata. He spoke in code, even in person. He never said "I love you." Instead, he said, "You're the one who makes me forget I'm surrounded by liars." I fell for it. For the danger, the adrenaline, the feeling of being wanted. I gave him everything. My body, my heart, my loyalty. But what I didn't know was that he was recording everything. In November 2024, everything collapsed. It started with a strange silence. Baltasar stopped texting. His guards no longer picked me up. I thought he was pulling away, that maybe he was done with me. I had started to panic, obsessing over why. Then the videos leaked. I still remember that morning. My phone buzzed endlessly. Friends, unknown numbers, even my boss at the design firm where I worked. At first, I thought someone had died. Then I saw the first clip. It was me, in a hotel room in Bata. Naked. Mourning his name. Begging him not to stop. The angles were professional. High definition. Edited. Timed. My wedding ring clearly visible on my finger. I wanted to throw up. By noon, every major gossip blog in West Africa had the footage. The clips were tagged Baltasar's secret files. I raced home. Daniel was already there. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just looked at me like I had become a ghost. "I saw it all," he said. "Don't insult me with an explanation." He packed a bag and left. My children were sent to stay with their grandparents. My employer quietly terminated my contract, citing reputational risk. Friends stopped replying to my messages. Women whispered behind my back in church. Even my parents, devout and traditional, told me to pray for redemption on Baltasar. He vanished. I later learned, through a friend in the Interior Ministry, that the videos were leaked deliberately. Baltasar had been under investigation for months. Releasing the tapes was a diversion tactic, using me as a pawn in his political war. He never loved me. He used me. I tried to find him. I sent emails. Called his old numbers. Nothing. His name disappeared from government records a month later. Some said he fled to Morocco. Others claimed he was assassinated. I don't know what to believe anymore. It's July 2025 now. I live alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of Malabo. I teach art classes to teenagers. I'm slowly rebuilding my relationship with my kids. Daniel still won't speak to me. I don't blame him. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that first touch, that first lie, that first moment I handed over everything I had for a man who viewed me as an expendable asset. And sometimes, I still crave him not because he was kind, but because he made me feel alive. Because he saw the part of me I tried to hide, the selfish, reckless, lonely part. I cheated. I betrayed. I lied. And I paid the price. But I also learned something painful and powerful. Not every man who holds your hand wants to hold your heart. And not every secret you share in the dark stays hidden. Botesa Ingonga, wherever you are, you broke my heart. But you also forced me to rebuild it. Piece by bloody piece I am no longer who I was. And maybe that's the only redemption I'll ever get. The first time I met Botesa Ingonga was March 28, 2024 at precisely 7:36 p.m. I remember the time because I had just looked at my watch before stepping into the courtyard of the Sofitel Hotel in Malabo, where a fundraiser for anti-corruption initiatives was being held. How ironic that sounds now. Daniel was supposed to be there, shaking hands with other financial executives, sipping his usual white wine, and doing what he did best, blending into the elite. But that evening, he called me 2 hours prior, stuck in a flight delay from Madrid. "I'm sorry," he said over the phone. "Just go without me. Represent us." I hesitated. I wasn't used to being alone at these events, especially not in a room full of powerful men and calculating women. But I wore a fitted dark emerald gown, tied my hair back in a low chignon, and applied perfume the way I hadn't in months. A whisper of rebellion stirred in my veins. As I stood by the garden fountain, sipping chilled champagne, Botesa approached from my left. He didn't introduce himself right away. He didn't compliment my dress, or ask who I was with. No, instead, he said, "It's a dangerous thing being beautiful and bored." I turned, slightly startled, and saw him for the first time, tall, dark-skinned, with those piercing eyes like Scotch charcoal, and a thin, knowing smile that seemed to say, "I've seen you already months ago, excuse me." I replied, more curious than offended. He simply nodded, raising his glass, and said, "Forgive me. I tend to see people before they know they are being watched." It wasn't a line. It wasn't a flirt. It was a statement, and I was intrigued. He didn't tell me who he was. Not at first. But he knew who I was. He spoke of Daniel vaguely, called him the man who dots every I but leaves every sentence unfinished. He commented on my architecture sketches, which had been featured once in a local gallery. He even knew the name of my children. "I do my homework," he said when I finally asked how he knew so much. "It's a requirement of my job and my nature." It was only an hour later, after a dance, 3 more drinks, and a long conversation about West African architecture, that he finally leaned in and said, "Botesa Ingonga, Financial Investigation Agency. You may have heard rumors. Most of them are true." My heart skipped. I had heard of him. Everyone had. The man who had exposed the offshore accounts of 3 ministers. The man who made enemies just by walking into a room. Dangerous. Unreachable. And now interested in me. I went home that night shaking with adrenaline. In the following weeks, Botesa became a phantom in my life, appearing in unexpected places, texting me from untraceable numbers, sending me flowers signed only with a B. And I let it happen. I told myself it was just harmless attention. But deep down, I wanted to be seen. For years, I had felt like a shadow in my own marriage, present but unnoticed. With Daniel, everything was routine, practical, loveless. I had become a background figure in the life of a good man. But with Botesa, I was the center of gravity. He made time stand still. He sent a car to pick me up on April 10th. That night we drove out to a coastal village south of Luba. As we sat on the balcony overlooking the dark waters of the Gulf of Guinea, he turned to me and said, "You don't belong in a cage of diamonds. You're meant for fire." Those words burrowed into me like a secret spell. I felt alive, electrified, powerful and desired. I hadn't been touched like that in years, not just physically, but emotionally. He made me feel dangerous. Like I was someone he couldn't resist. Like I was his weakness. When he kissed me that night, I didn't pull away. When he undressed me, I didn't hesitate. I let go. I gave myself to him completely. Why? I thought it was love. People often mistake lust for love. But what I felt with Botesa was deeper than lust. It was devotion. He studied me. He anticipated me. He listened in ways Daniel never had. When I talked about my fears growing older, losing relevance, feeling invisible, he didn't dismiss them. He said, "Only powerful women think they are weak. That's the cruelest illusion of all." He remembered my favorite books. He quoted poetry in Spanish and French. He gave me handwritten notes, one of which read, "If you were a country, I would have declared war just to conquer you." I believed it. When he cooked for me in his private villa in Bata a meal of grilled sea bass, avocado, and white wine, I sat across from him thinking, this is what it feels like to be truly seen. And in the sheets, he was a different kind of lover, possessive, intense, slow, and then suddenly violent. He whispered things in form that I never understood, but they made me shiver. And he always looked me in the eyes, as if he were studying every reaction. Now I know why. By June, I was leading two lives. I lied to Daniel constantly. I invented business trips, design retreats, weekend getaways with girlfriends. I hid burner phones in the lining of my gym bag. I was addicted to the chaos, but then Botesa began to change. He became more paranoid. He asked me to never mention him by name, even in text. He checked my phone when we were together. Sometimes, in bed, he'd stop mid-act and say, "You're not recording me, are you?" It was strange, but I laughed it off. Then he started positioning mirrors. Setting up his phone for music, he said. I never questioned it. Not once. I trusted him. I was in love. But the man I thought I knew was never real. He was always 3 steps ahead. The night I realized it was all a lie was on the night of October 14, 2024. I woke up next to him after a long, feverish evening in one of his government guest apartments. He was in the bathroom, door cracked open. I heard him talking. He wasn't on the phone. He was dictating. My name. My details. Specific times. Locations. Keywords. Subject emotionally attached. Useful for future leverage. Recordings stored in offshore cloud. Codename Lyra. I froze. Lyra. That was the name he used when he texted me poems. It was a codename for me. I wasn't his lover. I was a target. I left before he came out. I didn't confront him. I couldn't. I was afraid. By November, the videos had leaked. And the man who made me feel like fire had burned my whole life to the ground. After the tapes went viral in November 2024, time didn't just slow, it shattered. The videos were all over social media, Telegram channels, and private WhatsApp groups. There was no warning. No way to prepare myself for what I saw on the screen. Myself in full color, moaning, vulnerable, wide-eyed in passion. My voice. My body. My betrayal. And Botesa, his face never shone clearly, but the voice unmistakable. The clips were edited with almost cinematic precision. Different nights, different settings, same story, me, completely lost in him. One clip even had a slow-motion filter. As if someone had crafted my downfall like a trailer for a film. I watched my entire life burn in 4K resolution. Daniel saw it the same morning. He didn't scream. He didn't hit me. He didn't even cry. He just stood in the living room of our home in Malabo, playing the clip on the TV, volume muted, lips pursed. He turned to me and said, "You turned our marriage into a movie for strangers." I tried to speak. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. My brain was a blur of shame, panic, humiliation. My knees buckled, but I didn't fall. He packed a suitcase in under 10 minutes. Left behind the house, the ring, even the family photos. The next day, the children were sent to live with his sister in Yaoundé. He cut off my access to our joint accounts. Blocked my number. Filed for separation within a week. The irony was bitter. I cheated on him while he gave me everything. And the man I cheated with had taken everything from me in return. By November 10th, my name was being whispered in government buildings and street markets alike. My employer called me into a private meeting. "We are letting you go. Officially, it's downsizing. Unofficially, you're a public distraction." My parents stopped answering my calls. "You've shamed the entire family," my mother wrote in a text. "God can forgive you. But we need time." My best friend, Jamila, posted on Facebook. "I used to believe she was a strong woman. Turns out she was just a spoiled mistress with a mask." Churches where I had once led Sunday art programs politely disinvited me. I walked through the streets like a plague in human form. Shopkeepers turned their eyes. Neighbors shut their doors when they saw me. Even the guards at the apartment complex where I moved to low income and anonymous looked at me like I was infected. Everywhere I went, I heard my name whispered like a sin lyra. The code name. Balthasar's pet name. Now the internet's nickname for me. And still part of me missed him. I became obsessed with finding Balthasar. I had to understand why. Was I just another name on a list? Another pawn? Did he ever actually feel anything? Or was I just leverage? I began the search in secret. November 18th, I returned to the villa in Luba. It was cleaned out. Empty. Even the ceiling fans were gone. The house had been stripped like a carcass. The caretaker, a woman who only spoke Fong, said the property had been reclaimed by the agency. 3 days before the leak, November 22nd, I bribed an IT technician at the Financial Investigation Agency. He gave me a USB drive full of documents, mostly redacted. But I saw enough to know that I had been part of a black file operation codenamed Lyrex. I wasn't the only one. There were 5 other women, all linked to men in financial, political, or business power. Balthasar had used all of us to extract intel, gain leverage, or distract enemies. December 1st, I tracked his last known location, Morocco, Casablanca. But the trail went cold. He had used fake identities. Disappeared like smoke in the wind. I was angry, devastated, and still addicted to the memory of him. By December 15th, I stopped sleeping. I started drinking wine alone in the dark. I replayed our old conversations, looking for signs, clues, lies I had swallowed like honey. You're not like them. Lie. You're the only one who gets to see this side of me. Lie. You're safe with me. The cruelest lie of all. I stopped eating. I forgot to pay rent. I missed a court summons. I stood on my balcony once middle of the night thinking if I stepped off, maybe it would finally be quiet. But then my daughter, Marie, called. She had borrowed her cousin's phone. Her voice cracked as she said, "Mom, I don't care what they said. I just want you to be okay." That call saved my life. Chapter 17, The Fight to Breathe Again. By January 2025, I began the slow, brutal climb back to reality. I started therapy under a false name. I worked part-time as a waitress in a small beach bar. The customers didn't recognize me, mostly fishermen, laborers, and the occasional drunk European expat. I kept a journal. I wrote every day. I wrote about the first time I felt invisible in my marriage. The first time Balthasar made me feel powerful. The first lie. The first taste of guilt. The first time I knew he didn't love me but chose to pretend he did. I began to understand something. I didn't just fall for him. I created a version of him to fill the emptiness I was afraid to face alone. I wasn't just his victim. I was my own. In May 2025, I received an anonymous package, no return address. Inside a burner phone. One video. Just 18 seconds long. It was Balthasar. Sitting in a dark room, smoking. He looked tired. Older. Worn down. He looked into the camera and said, "You were never the weakest link, Lyra. You were the most dangerous. Because you actually believed I was real." Then the screen went black. That was the last I heard from him. Was it a warning? An apology? A goodbye? I don't know. Maybe all of them. Maybe none. It's now July 2025. I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Bata. I teach local children how to paint. I cook my own meals. I've gained weight. I sleep through the night. Daniel and I are officially separated. We speak only when it's about the children. He says he's healing. I hope so. Sometimes, late at night, I still dream about Balthasar. But in the dream, I'm not begging him to stay. I'm walking away, finally. I once believed that love should burn. That intensity meant truth. That danger meant desire, but now I know better. Real love is quiet, consistent, safe. And sometimes, the hardest person to forgive isn't the one who broke your heart. It's the one who let it happen. Why I let him record me? People ask that question. They whisper it behind their screens, in group chats, at dusty cafes. Why did she let him record her? Wasn't she afraid? What kind of woman does that? Let me be honest. I didn't let him. I didn't agree to it like we signed a contract. It wasn't a conversation. It was a manipulation so delicate, so disguised, that I didn't even know it was happening. Let me take you back to the first time. It was April 24, 2024. A rainy Thursday night in Bata. Balthasar and I were in one of the guest apartments in a government compound, the kind only top-ranking officials could access. Cold, sterile rooms with blackout windows and safes in the closets. We had just finished dinner, grilled octopus, ginger tea, and I was in his shirt, barefoot, laughing on the couch. He pulled out his phone, sat it on the bedside table. I asked what he was doing. "Just playing music," he said, unlocking it, and soft jazz started to play. Miles Davis, smooth and slow. That was it. The first night we were recorded, I never saw a camera. Never heard a beep. No blinking red lights. No tripod in the corner. Just intimacy, like it was ours alone. Later, I would learn he had hidden a micro camera in a decorative lamp. It was voice activated. Night vision. Government issued. I read the specs on a report leaked to me by an anonymous source after the scandal broke, but back then, I thought I was safe. I thought I was special. Balthasar never asked to film us, he just did, but over time, he conditioned me to accept it. He'd say things like, "I wish I could remember every inch of you, even when I'm away." Or, "You're too beautiful to exist only once, and your art. If I could, I'd paint you. But this is how I keep you with me." He said these things after sex, in the dark, while I lay on his chest, high on endorphins and illusions. So when I finally did see the phone propped up once, camera open, I didn't question it. I was in too deep. I was caught in his current, swimming in the fantasy. And to be honest, a part of me felt flattered. Like I was a goddess being immortalized. Like I was finally the center of someone's world. That's the problem with lonely women. We confuse control for love. November 3, 2024. That was the day the world watched me fall. It started as a buzz, a strange text from a former colleague. Check Twitter. "You're trending." Then another from my cousin in France. "Girl, is that you in the clip?" I was still in my robe, drinking coffee on the balcony of our house in Malabo, when I opened my phone and clicked the link. There I was. Half naked. On my knees. Whimpering. Smiling. Laughing. Collapsing onto sheets I once believed were sacred. It wasn't just one video. It was a series, compared, edited, watermarked with the phrase "Lyra exposed," The Secret Life of a Minister's Wife. My name wasn't Lyra, but the internet had made it my brand. My shame had a logo now. In one clip, I said, "I've never felt this alive." In another, "He never touches me like you do." The worst part. In all of them, I looked happy. That's what broke me. I didn't look like a victim. I looked like a woman in love burning in it. There are no words for the kind of soul death that happens when your private life becomes public pornography. There is no sound loud enough to replicate the noise in your head when your children's teachers have seen you naked. When strangers debate your body, your moms, your worth as if you're a trending topic and not a human being. But I'll try to explain how it felt. It felt like drowning with no water inside, just shame, pressing on every nerve, heavy like concrete in my lungs. It felt like being flayed alive, not with knives, but with whispers. Every glance became a judgment. Every text tone felt like a slap. Every silence from a loved one screamed louder than words. It felt like my body didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to screens, to honey men, to journalists writing opinion pieces about how the wife of a banker slept her way into a scandal. It felt like betraying my children, even if they didn't know yet. Someday, they would. And they'd Google me. They'd see me naked, on my knees, worshipping a ghost. And worst of all, it felt like I had done it to myself. In the days that followed, I stopped going outside. I turned off my phone. I blocked every app. But it didn't stop. Anonymous packages arrived at my door. One with a USB stick labeled, "More of you," one with a Bible and a note that read, "Judas was also loved before he betrayed." On Twitter, men debated if I was worth the fall. Women called me a disgrace to the nation. Religious leaders used me as a sermon cautionary tale. Even in my silence, I was louder than ever, just not in the way I had ever wanted. 2 weeks after the leak, I stood in front of a mirror for the first time, naked, alone. Not for a man. Not for Balthasar. Not for the world. For me, I looked at the same body I had once used as a bargaining chip. My skin, my curves, the mouth that whispered lies, the eyes that cried afterward. And for the first time, I didn't hate what I saw, because under the humiliation, beneath the betrayal, I was still here. Broken, but breathing. So, why did I let him record me? Because I mistook attention for devotion. Because I wanted to be seen. Because I let my loneliness dress up as empowerment. Because I believed that love was meant to be wild, reckless, dangerous. And when the danger came, I didn't run, I posed for it, I seduced it, and it destroyed me. But now, I understand the cost of that kind of love. It demands everything, and in return, gives you nothing but scars, screenshots, and silence.